right, so today we're going to talk about the current polling data for the 2024 presidential race. As conservatives, one thing we need to think about is that this race is going to be just as close as the last two. I know a lot of us as conservatives, we think that because of the persecution against Trump and the incompetency of Biden, that we're going to win by a landslide, but the polling numbers are really not showing that.
No, and if you look at the history of pretty much the past decade, if not 2 or 3 decades of American electoral campaigns, it's always been whoever wins by a hair. So it shouldn't come as a surprise that the numbers are looking like this, but let's get into what they are looking like.
Well, right now, if we talk first just about Trump and Biden, because we can kind of consider each of them to be the incumbents for their party.
Yeah.
I mean, Trump is polling 52 as of yesterday for the Republican nomination. DeSantis at 22, Pence at 4. So, I mean, DeSantis is trailing very strongly for this early in the race.
And Pence shouldn't even, I don't even know what he's doing.
Pence, I think, is just trying to have a way to be vice president again in a way. I mean, he's too far right for a lot of Americans. He is trying to push for it's kind of weird. He's the most pro-life candidate on the ballot, a Republican candidate on the ballot, but he also is pushing for a 15-month federal ban on abortion after 15 months. Or
yeah.
Not 15 months, I mean 15 weeks, I think.
Okay.
But you're accepting that we're going to legalize abortion federally now, you know? Mm-hmm. And so there's going to be some states. It's a weird ground, and I don't really like him very much personally.
He never had any juice.
He does not have any juice. He's just grandpa. I mean, he
was just there. He looked good.
Yeah, he's a country club conservative.
Yeah.
I mean, if this was 99 or 2000, I mean, he would probably done very well.
Oh yeah. He's very Bush-esque.
He is. But we're looking, I mean, so that we've got some states data like Wisconsin. Biden is beating DeSantis and Trump. They kind of project out and see what it would look like in the general election. Mm-hmm. For the entire race, it's showing that it's Trump +1 right now if he does go against Biden in the country. And 1 point is not what we want.
No, that's pretty bad.
I think that, honestly, a lot of that is to do with some Republicans going to RFK, who is also polling very well. So for the Democratic presidential nomination, as of Thursday, the June 29th, Kennedy is at 17 points, Biden at 64. So Biden's got a 47-point lead, which I will say is a much larger lead than Trump has over DeSantis. Mm-hmm. But we have to think about the fact that a lot of these middle ground moderates that would have voted for Trump, these populists, are going to vote for maybe RFK over. And I'm not going to lie. I mean, it was kind of hard to see his feelings on the abortion argument, which is really with a lot of these moderate Democrats, what is like, I feel like it's a one decision thing for me to vote blue or red. Yeah. If there was a moderate Democrat like RFK who was pro-life, I would at least consider it. Because, I mean, RFK has a lot of positions that I like. He wants to combat these 3-letter agencies. He wants to go back against the CIA and the FBI. He wants to look at our medical industry, our healthcare industry. He's very small business focused, which is something we really haven't actually seen from a lot of Democrats.
And to be fair, Republicans too. I think
as well.
There's a lesson to be learned for the right, or the conservative majority of this country, in that how is it that a Democrat can win over these more populist-minded people, in spite of being a Democrat, just on a handful of issues. Why are our Republicans so caught up on adopting the entire broad spectrum of what it means to be a Republican, when there's only really a handful of things that are viscerally important to voters?
Yeah.
And beyond that, you have a lot of leeway in terms of what you can say. Trump's a really good example of it in 2016 with his kind of like nationalistic policy, because during the Obama administration, you probably remember, to be a Republican was basically to be a libertarian. You were like a Tea Party, the government's doing too much, get rid of the government.
Small government.
But then Trump gets in and starts adopting these nationalistic social programs.
That's kind of been the shift in the Republican Party.
And everybody follows suit. So it's not, they aren't caught up in the whole spectrum of what it means at any given time to be a Republican or to be a Democrat. They have a handful of issues that they care about, and as long as you address those in a way that they understand and sympathize with, you pretty much have the freedom to do what you want in terms of other things.
And I agree that that's more how it should be. You shouldn't pigeonhole yourself into a party, because we've seen, party lines and the ideas of specific parties change. But we have to understand that fact as conservatives. And I'm not saying just Republicans, but just conservative-minded people, because there's moderates that wouldn't say they're Republicans that are, I would say, more conservative than a lot of Republicans,
Mm-hmm.
But
I think Kennedy is probably going to win over a lot of those people too, because I mean, one of the things that I've heard some people point out is that there's almost a cult of personality around the name Kennedy.
Oh yes,
especially with Northern Catholics who are
these industrial class Northerners.
Yeah, and people who probably have been drawn towards the Republican Party as of recent years when they might have historically voted Democrat, but they've been drawn towards the Republican Party because they do represent a more conservative-minded policy that
it's a populist policy.
Yes, that they identify with in terms of their personal beliefs.
And I've seen a shift in the past 2 weeks. I know we talked previously that Trump was kind of almost running on this position of woe is me, they're attacking me, so you need to vote for me so I can do something about it. Mm-hmm. And we said it was kind of mirrored 2016 where he said they're attacking you, let me defend you. Yeah. And then he kind of shifted to they're attacking me, you should defend me. Mm-hmm. In the past few weeks, he's taken this beautiful stance that we don't see from Republicans or Democrats now, except for RFK. It's completely anti-war.
I went on his website when you had mentioned that, and when you type in, because I was like Trump peace, because I didn't know what particular article you were talking about, where had you gotten that from, and the first link that comes up is a link to it's called TrumpWhiteHouse.com or .gov or something, and it's a link to a page where he lays out his plan for a peace between Israel and Palestine. Like it's very interesting.
And he wants to talk between Taiwan and China. He doesn't want to impose any will. He wants to help resolve the issue for the world. And he even quoted the Bible, which I thought was really cool, which a lot of Republicans won't do nowadays, especially like front runner populist Republicans. He said there's a Bible verse that says, "Blessed is he, the maker of the peace." Yeah. And then people cheered because he said that's his number one issue is when he gets into office. There was an interview, I'm sure you saw it. I can't remember. I want to say it was NBC or CNN, and they were asking him why he wanted to end the war. And then the lady said, "Do you not want Ukraine to win the war?" Mm-hmm. And he said, "It's not about that." And she said, "What do you mean?" He said, "I want people to stop dying. I don't care who wins the war." He said, exactly. The issue here is that hundreds of thousands of people are dying every day. And it's not every day, but a lot of people are dying.
Thousands of people
are dying every day. And you see the video, you can see it on Instagram and TikTok. This is the first war where you can just YouTube a video of boats being blown up and houses being bombed.
Because even in like Iraq and Afghanistan, that stuff was still like isolated to television. You're still getting fed a particular lens.
It's filtered.
Yes.
And now it's like a Ukrainian guy in a hole with a gun filming these Russians running up on him with a shovel, and it's real, and people are dying, and Republicans and Democrats, apart again from RFK and Trump, are just pushing to continue this and exacerbate the issue.
And it's good that he's taking the stance of being like a peaceful negotiator between these parties, because I feel like one might be critical and say, well, it's not our place to negotiate peace. But when you look at it specifically, well, I mean, all three of these instances, you have Israel and Palestine, Ukraine and Russia, and Taiwan and China. It's not like the United States and our government is a neutral party and we're just helping out the side that we think is better after the conflict has arisen. We've effectively instigated these conflicts. Yeah. So our presence is necessary in terms of establishing a peace. Yes.
He wants to clean up our image. I was speaking to a colleague the other day, and she had gone to Thailand, and she said it's the nicest people in the world, but people hate Americans. Yeah. Every country across the world, and I hate that as an American. That's the view we've got is as warmongers and fearmongers, and that if we're coming to your country, we're going to start wars, and we're going to destabilize, and we're going to tell you that you're wrong. And Trump is saying, no, we need to go there. We need to fix these issues. Actually fix them. It's actionable policy. Yeah. He actually wants to do things. It's not theoretical and ideological. But I think that's the way he wins against DeSantis, is through peacemaking.
So many of the Republicans will criticize and attempt to delegitimize parties for having that attitude towards America. Like, Iran's a great example. Mm-hmm. In Iran, it is very permissible to denounce America, to say you hate America.
And can we blame them?
And exactly, that's the thing is, the statement shouldn't be, the attitude towards this shouldn't be, well, fuck them, they hate Americans. It should be, why do they hate us? Can we do anything? Why is this our image? Why is this how we're perceived?
We need to accept that there's an issue and it was our fault.
Yeah.
If we continue, it's like with addiction. If you continue to deny that there's an issue in the first place and why the issue is occurring, nothing's going to be fixed.
Exactly.
And as the American people, I don't want to get to the point where American people have to go to war. I don't want my children to grow up in a world where they're hated for being American, especially when we're entering a place where we're not going to be the sole economic superpower of the world. I think that overall, where we're at in the election right now is Trump is going to have to continue to, like he did in 2016, set himself apart from Republicans. He can't just run on the fact that Biden is incompetent, because every Republican is going to run on that.
Exactly.
Like DeSantis is running in that same lane as Trump ran kind of in 2016 in a way. Like, I'm fighting for you. Trump's got to what is different in 2020 over 2016? And why would I vote, if I'm a moderate, why would I vote for Trump over RFK?
And I think that this is a good hill to die on for Trump. You know, not that I think it's going to go down like that, but this is probably his best chance. Because if you look at someone like DeSantis, and we've talked about this before, DeSantis is still a war hawk. You know, he takes the Republican line of like, oh, okay, yeah, we don't need to be doing this in Ukraine, but we need to be doing this in China. You know, and I haven't heard DeSantis' position on Israel, but I'm sure it's pretty much the same thing, where it's like, we're going to continue to support Israel, and you know the Palestinian state doesn't have a right to exist, yada yada yada. But for Trump to differentiate himself like this, I think is definitely a turn in the good direction, and I think it's reflected in this polling data that you've been looking at.
So Sunday, June 25th, 4 days ago, it was still Trump 51, DeSantis 22, Trump over by 29. It has gone up since then.
Okay.
But the Biden-Trump split has actually gone down towards Trump. It was Biden.
So he's getting up a little bit.
Exactly. It was Biden +4. Now we have Trump +4. So it's actually switched in the past week. And he had that speech the other day, and it's in the past week with Lindsey Graham. Lindsey Graham, in an interview, he was speaking to Zelensky and some other leaders out there in Ukraine, and he said lots of Russians are dying. It's the best money we've ever spent. And I feel like Trump this week has kind of been that. This has been his response to that coming out. You know, because it's Lindsey Graham is showing that the Republican Party and the American establishment loves this war, and they love that Russians are dying, and Trump does not. He said, me and Putin are friends. I know Zelensky very well. I can figure this out, and within 24 hours we will have this stopped. And part of it is cutting off the funding to Ukraine. But just because of that, I've seen even the Republicans that I know that were kind of hesitant on Trump now with everything that's happened. That's what people want right now. There's a lot of issues that we can worry about. Yeah. But we gotta end this war.
Exactly, and this is the only way to do it. Is you can't. I think recent events have proven that there's no chance of winning this war without just the total annihilation of Ukraine. Like it's either going to be that Russia wins slowly and the entire country is destroyed, or Russia wins quickly with a smaller loss of life. And I think that's kind of the game that Russia's been playing, where it's like, yeah, we probably could steamroll. We probably could just go in and fuck shit up and win this war.
But they view it as part of Russia, so
yes,
they don't want to just steamroll it.
Exactly. They don't want to have to destroy the entire country. But I think this is a good sign. This is a good sign of Trump's, again, differentiating himself from the rest of the Republicans. That was coming into this kind of election cycle. I know it's so early on that I can't believe we're saying that it's started already. Yeah. But it's inarguable that it has.
Arguably, it started after the last election. I mean, we knew Trump was going to be running again. We knew Biden was going to try to run again. I thought Biden might die in his presidency or something, or be ruled medically incompetent.
Did you see he wears a CPAP machine to sleep now?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure he has been for a while.
There was a interviewer stopped him outside the White House one day, and he had these lines on his face.
Really?
And they asked him, and I think he denied it at first, but then one of his aides came out and was like, yeah, he wears a CPAP machine.
In 2015, we were seeing a lot of people were talking about Trump being a very unhealthy president, and that is it okay to have a president that's unhealthy? And there was one interview where he said something, and he was like, oh, my bad, I meant to say this. And it was the same interviewers that are now, the same journalists that are now on NBC and CNN talking about how Biden is fine. There's nothing to worry about. There's nothing to worry about. He's an old man. Yes, old men stumble sometimes. Yes, they fall over. Yes, they do these things. It just kind of shows you that they're going to say what they want to say about anything. And
it shows you exactly whose pocket they're in, too. Because one of the things that I hear people talk about all the time is that, like, oh, there's like two theories of American politics in terms of how you consider the Republican and the Democratic Party and their relationship. Either you have this kind of uni-party understanding where you're like, oh, it's all one thing. They're all in each other's pockets. Yada yada yada. Everybody's, it doesn't matter who's in charge. It's all one thing, and that's usually the take of people on the further left and the further right, where it's like this is obviously one state,
and then separated from the whole idea of bipartisanism.
But there's this conception of the Republican Party that they're the dominant, that the Democratic Party is somehow like a controlled opposition to the Republican Party that's the dominant, like the spearhead of
that the Democrats are the counterculture.
Exactly. That the Democrats are like this. They're more in line with the policies of the people. They're less supported by big business but then you look at Trump's entire presidency and you see that the media was against him. Every single institution of American public culture was against him.
When you look at the largest tech conglomerates and corporations in the country, I mean, they espouse left-wing ideology and left-wing views. Even if that's what those shareholders actually want, the money, the people, the power is on the left wing of the United States. When you look at the voter base for people like Trump and DeSantis, I mean, I hate to say, it's not that there's anything wrong with them, but it's blue collar people, it's people with less money, it's people with less education overall.
It's the working class.
It's the working class. Yeah. Not to say that less education in the way that they can't formulate an idea. They just aren't these academic elite.
They're not. They haven't bought into this institute. They haven't been institutionalized.
They haven't paid $1 million for their education to go to Yale.
Most of these people have worked the same job their whole fucking life,
and they built this country.
Yeah, exactly. And they're the soil of America.
So to say that he's some sort of corporate elite overlord is ridiculous. Because I mean, if he was in their pockets, they would be supporting him. You know, it makes no sense, and they wouldn't be trying to arrest him at every turn, and they wouldn't be trying to persecute him.
I think we should talk about RFK a little bit.
Okay, let's talk about RFK.
I know that I don't think this has demographics, the polling data we're looking at right now, but I would be very interested to see exactly how RFK is polling with specific groups of people. I want to see where, because he's obviously taking a chunk out of the traditional Democratic voters that would otherwise have voted for Biden, but how much is he taking out of the right or the traditional Republican voters that are a little bit ambivalent about DeSantis and a little bit ambivalent about Trump? Is it all coming from dissatisfied Democrats, or is he pulling from the right as well?
See, that's hard to see right now. I'm sure we're gonna have to wait further on. I hope he's pulling away from Biden, but we also do have to talk about the fact if, say, RFK gets the nomination, RFK can debate.
Exactly. He's a very intelligent man.
And he's prepared to debate Trump. Biden is not going to debate Trump. Well, I think does he have to? Because they've said that Biden is not going to participate in debates at all. Which, I mean, if there's a red herring, how can you say that and then also claim that the man is competent? Which, I mean, for the Democratic Party, not that I want left-wingers to win the election per se, but I mean, if I was going to give them advice, I'd say, RFK has a much better chance against somebody like Trump.
And we established...
he has less baggage, too.
I think we talked about it earlier. He has better policies than most people on the left. He has more common sense. Also, did you see that video of him doing push-ups shirtless?
Oh my gosh. I think that should be... If you can't do 10 push-ups, you shouldn't be able to be president.
Exactly.
He's doing incline press and push-ups. He's got pecs and
dude,
abs.
He's jacked.
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either. You could kind of tell when you see him in a suit, but you don't think about it. Yeah, but
his whole thing is health. And that's why when people say that's one of the things I saw in an interview where they were talking about when he's always been anti-vaccine because he did a lot of research. He was an environmental guy.
Yeah.
He focused on mercury poisoning and how it was causing autism in the United States, and it was from a lot of these coal factories or coal plants, power plants, because the mercury would go to the air. But mercury is an element, so it doesn't degrade.
Yeah.
And then when it rains, it's in the rivers, and he cleaned up the river in New York City. It's the I can't remember the name of the river, large river. But when he started, there was basically no fish in the river. Now it's like the world's standard for environmental stability
in New York.
Literally in New York.
That's
it's crazy.
Insane.
And he did that. That was his project. He had a group that he did that, and he shifted to vaccines because of that. because there was this group of mothers that would follow him around, and apparently they were like Mothers Against Autism or something, and they kept giving him data, and he looked at it, and it's the mercury in a lot of these vaccines.
Yeah, I was gonna say a lot of vaccines have mercury in them.
That's how he got started, and it's like the research is like we've been lied to about these vaccines, and then he's the one who kind of looked at like the AIDS epidemic and how like we've kind of been like giving diseases to people in Africa, all kinds of stuff. So all of that I love, and that I love that he will go against the establishment, and I think he kind of. I almost don't see him as a Democrat in a way, like a modern Democrat.
I think
I don't see Trump as a Republican.
Yeah, I think he's doing the thing that Trump was doing, where he's like, I'm going to run for president. I'm doing it as an independent, but I recognize that unfortunately you can't run as an independent. You know,
well, and he knows that also. I think that if he ran as a Republican, he wouldn't get the nomination against Trump. But I think he thinks he has a better chance of beating Biden for the nomination.
And I would have to agree with him.
I would agree.
Like I said, I'm a more conservative-minded person, so maybe I'm biased. But if I can't imagine a liberal looking at Joe Biden and RFK and not seeing at least some merit in voting for RFK.
I mean, RFK could beat him in a debate and a cage match.
That's really what it comes down to for me is like you said earlier. If you can't do 10 push-ups, you shouldn't be president. Like,
just how can we? Your brain is part of your body. It's a functioning organ. If you can't, I mean, Biden can barely walk up a flight of steps, and RFK's out here doing, outdoor workouts in the sun. You know.
You look at Putin, right?
Putin, yeah, he does judo.
Man's jacked.
I mean, even Xi is not in the best shape, but he's still like a fit.
I wouldn't pick a fight with him.
Yeah, I wouldn't pick a fight with Xi.
He's a bigger guy. We need a guy like that. Trump's like that too, but I feel like it's very easy to be faster than Trump.
Yeah.
But RFK, I'm not fighting RFK.
Yeah.
I'm not like
Trump's got that Reagan energy where like he might not just like beat you up initially, but like I think Trump, if you shot him with a 22, he'd probably keep speaking.
Yeah, he'd probably just be okay.
I think Biden would just crumble into a pile of dust.
Yeah, he'd melt like the witch in the Wizard of Oz.
DeSantis would probably start crying and call his mother.
I think that's a good way to end it.
I'm pretty sure that DeSantis' wife runs the household and runs him. I've seen interviews with them, and I mean she has him on a tight leash.
Yeah,
and I don't want that to be.
You look at the guy's face. That's all you have to do.
I mean, he's a child that grew up.
I don't want that guy being the president.
Yeah, no. RFK. I mean, I don't necessarily support RFK, but I don't hate him. He should
stop smoking cigarettes or whatever the fuck he's doing to his lungs. He should definitely stop.
Right, he needs something because that's the only thing preventing him from being just a Giga Chad of a guy.
Yeah, but maybe if he gets elected, he can do like a stone cold I'm not talking in public type of thing. Wear sunglasses all the time. I would be down with that.
No comment.
Yeah. Or you could get like a Darth Vader mask, like some kind of robotic. Yeah, that would be really cool. I remember when COVID first started. I saw a picture of Donald Trump with like a black COVID mask on and like a trench coat, and I was like, I ain't gonna lie, bro, that's kind of tough.
That's kind of tough.
Yeah, that's kind of tough.
Kind of tough. He made the Space Force there on that time too.
Yeah.
All right. I think we touched on a lot, but yeah, we're gonna have to. We'll be following this election. We'll be following the polling data as things change. If there's any updates, we'll be sure to update you guys.